Okay, 5:32, call to order the Economic Development Commission meeting. Let's do roll call. Margaret Morris, Commissioner.
Well, Groves Commissioner. Member.
And we have Suzanne Ellery and Susan Dowling joining by
Okay,
Zoom.
fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We have a public communication, I believe someone wants to address. If you want to come up and introduce yourself and make these statements to the commission, you're more than welcome to. Yeah. Thank you for coming in.
Part of my attire, I just found out about this meeting 20 minutes ago when I was painting. My name is Jane Kuchel. I own several businesses in the town of Groton. And I just found out, like I said, about this meeting, and I wanted to inquire. I'd like to see Groton. There's so many empty buildings, some of them I own too, and get some, it looks poor in this town, so I specifically like to inquire about on the corner of 117 and Route 84. I own a vacant building. I have a business on the opposite side. And I was hoping that we could take some of that, maybe federal money or something, and get sewer and water there. It's a beautiful part of our town. If you're ever down there about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the traffic is crazy on all 4 corners. I mean, I just think that it's part of town that gets neglected, and it's probably due to the sewer and water. And is there any insight or any information on anything intended, or can we get something moving to get sewer and water in that part of town?
Typically, thank you for your comments. If you just continue your questioning, I can then collect the information afterwards as a chair and kind of get back to you afterwards. I don't have any information directly myself at this time, but if you just share with me the information, I could get you a response.
So you can't answer me if anybody's.
I don't personally know as a chair, but you're bringing to my attention information that I get you a response for, because I appreciate your being here and presenting us with the question and giving us some ability to get back to you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify that the public communications item on the agenda is to try to solicit input from the public and the business, which we're receiving. And if you want to explain more, I think we're interested in hearing more. Specific, we don't typically engage in a conversation because those items are to be on our agenda. If we were going to talk about, for example, infrastructure at this particular location, we would have to actually post it on the agenda in order to have an open conversation. So that's why that doesn't happen. I would like to engage with you. I'm quite familiar with the area, and I offline would like to share, I think, some positive news, some optimism. I think we are aware of what you're talking about, and I appreciate you coming because we want to hear more of that. Actually, if you have more to say, I'm all ears, but I would like to talk to you offline to provide, I think, some of the feedback that you might be asking for.
Yeah, and if not just in this room, maybe other rooms we can go to get the town engaged. I don't know if that's needed. Whatever it needs, I think, and I don't see why we don't move on this. Like it's needed. It's 2023 and sewer and water on that part, and I believe they moved up to the Marriott, is what I'm told. So, things shouldn't stop at the Marriott. You know what I mean? There's other people that are important too.
Thank you very much. Bill?
I would just, I love hearing these types of things. We know the area because we've had other things. I'm encouraged for Paige to follow up as an offline conversation, and if need be, this is exactly where EDC should be putting it onto as an agenda item as discussion at a minimum, and then solicit other input from other business owners and people in the area to make something we can discuss openly in the commission meeting. So.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think Paige has some information for you to have an offline conversation about that. If something from that merits being put on the agenda, we can put it on and get it out to the public and have, like Bill had said, have further communications about it.
So whatever I have to do, wherever I have to go, wherever I have to speak to, just, give me the information to start, somewhere. Okay,
I will reach out to you within the next day or two and share some information.
Okay.
And have a conversation, and then I can relay what I have advised you. I'll share that with our commission as well. And then we can find out if there'll be if we're gonna have a conversation at a future meeting.
okay, how do I give you my number? I don't
I-
want to say it on here.
I have your,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, guys.
Thank you very much.
For coming. We really appreciate it. Okay, approval of minutes.
Bob, Do you want to give this gentleman an opportunity to do public? Did you want to speak for public communications?
This is our, I think our new.
Prospective
Yeah.
commission member.
Appreciate it. And we do not have anybody else online, so thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
You're always helpful.
Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes, to motion, everybody read the minutes last time, motion for approval?
So moved with one thing. Just a question, when I got the agenda, when I was looking at it for last meeting, it was down as a special meeting agenda, which confused me for a last meeting. So I'm referring to how this came out. I would assume that would just. This one's correct. It's a regular meeting. Last, for some reason, the agenda when it came out, it was located as a special meeting, I believe.
I am unaware of that.
Well, I get confused easily. So. And I think I saved it, to tell you the truth, and if it doesn't have any reflection on it, it's not something in the minutes. So I just wanted to bring that to, that I did see it.
Okay.
I thought I might have carried it with me.
Okay, so we have a motion approved, any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes approved. Old business, okay, business outreach. So related to business outreach, I'm going to turn it over to Susan, who has, well, I'll let her explain. She volunteered to help out and be the chairman of the subcommittee.
Oh, it's Suzanne, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
It is Suzanne, and I offered to be the chairwoman on the outreach. Actually, I prefer chairperson, but anyway, thank you for giving me the floor for just a few minutes. So I'm very honored to take this on, and I'm very passionate about outreach in general. And so the goal for outreach is for all of us to get to know our business community and to have some face-to-face time with them, and then to collect information to bring back to this group. And we want this to be pretty easy, and it should be. It shouldn't be difficult. If you just think of the places that you go every day, your hairdresser, the liquor store, shopping downtown, Mystic, wherever, and just stopping in and announcing, sharing who you are, and that, we're here to listen, offering up the two websites that we have, the greatergroton.com and the Explore More Groton. And then, making an offer if they'd like, for example, to attend any of the Mystic Chamber or Southeastern Connecticut Chamber events. We can get them free tickets. We can help them host events, before the coffee chat there or after hours. We can offer that. And then just trying to collect at a very high level, any kind of opportunity or challenges they're experiencing, and then bring it back. And again, at a high level, every month, if we can just have a quick summary of who we reached out to, and then we can try to build up some knowledge for all of us. And then eventually, if we all do this, then we'll have information that maybe we can identify some trends and bring it to the town council's attention at one of their meetings. We don't have a large number of people who do that are supporting business versus supporting, the open space, for example. So we'd love it if everybody on this team of the commissioners, if we could each of us take one a month and go out and just talk to people in the business community. And so I'm just going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Suzanne, I would just say that the guest we had speaking today, that's a perfect example of someone that we should be outreaching because she probably also knows other property owners.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great topic of conversation and, you know, that's something right up our alley. So, but what concerns me the most is I didn't know anything about this meeting until 10 minutes ago. And it's just, that's part of what we're going to try to do. So thank you.
I'll just add, firstly, apologize for mispronouncing your name. It's been a long one. But I'm also very grateful for your help in this, and I, am very available, make myself available to support that and make the commitment to get out there and do those, meetings of business leaders and business owners in the area. And I'll just also put out, if everybody hasn't gotten their bios in and pictures, please do that. It really helps everything, the outreach and the whole objective here that town staff is really available to support us, but we need to sort of energize and get behind this. So thank you very much for that.
And Lauren, thank you. I realize you're going to be making us some business cards that we can pass out to folks, but you need us to create our new Gmail accounts. Did you get my email? Is she there? I can't see. It's so tiny.
Right, no, Lauren's not here today. I can check with her, but yes, she will be following up on business cards.
Great. Okay, so I'd love to hold a meeting with, if anybody wants to join, to talk about this or any other ideas on how we can have outreach. So I'll send something out via email, and maybe I can find a time to have a quick meeting to talk more about outreach. It's really important for us to gather an understanding of how we can help others. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Suzanne, also just to mention, the best way of doing that is send it through Lauren and then she goes out and kind of gets an idea what people's availabilities are and coordinate it that way. And that way it's in my calendar.
Great, will do. Okay, I have to sign off. I'll catch up later on the minutes. If there's anything in particular I need to know about, I'll just, I'll keep looking in my email. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, bye.
We still have a quorum? We're still,
Yes.
okay. Great. Annual report, Bill and I were gonna discuss that. We're still discussing how to.
It's been a little crazy, but yeah.
So we'll move on to new business. One thing, there's been a discussion about air quality and specifically mold standards. The federal government is looking at that, and there's some discussion at the state level. And I know the town manager and the city of Groton mayor have both been in support of some legislation that's being discussed in Hartford related to setting some sort of standards. So I was thinking it might be helpful if, since housing and workforce housing and housing development is such a critical issue, it's such a driver of economic development. If we as an EDC, if I were put together a simple letter sort of supporting those efforts and supporting standardization and things that kind of can promote economic development like that, and maybe send it to the town manager as well. So I was wondering if anybody had any comments about that, thoughts about that, or if that was something we could get behind.
Are we talking existing housing? So the issues that we're having with some of our older.
It's, I think the impetus locally is Brantford Manor.
Right.
But the issue is to create some standards where you can begin to hold accountable and know where the line is between what a living condition should be maintained at. Right now, I think a lot of the problems, at the federal level and the state level is there's not a defined standard for mold or clean air. So they're starting to unpack these difficult issues in Hartford and figure out in Hartford and at the federal level, figure out how to do this. So I just thought in the same vein as the mayor and the town manager sort of just put our kind of support behind that as a way. Having standards sort of promotes economic development because everyone knows where they stand. They know what they're going to be kind of held to and what is acceptable. So
I'm not opposed to that reasoning. What I always am cognizant of is that when we try to legislate these things, sometimes they go further than.
Yeah.
And now you're putting undue financial burden on someone that may perspective of looking to rehab something and such. So I'd be, as I said, not opposed. I'd like to know a little bit more about it before I say, yeah, we're all supportive of this, because there are certain standards. I don't know if they're, I know when I dealt with the school system in Old Lyme, there are bold standards that they come in and say, this level is too high, so that it's just not, I don't think legislatively it's not done, but it's just acceptable air standards is what I'm saying. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. I think that the objective of the EDC weighing in on this is just to promote the dialogue, not necessarily bless any outcome, not sort of rubber stamp any particular destination, but the fact that there's discussion going on and things like that. I think that might be valuable for us to just suggest.
As I said, I'm not against theory. I worry about in practice. So.
We have discussed for years the significance of housing to the local economy and regional. And many actually years ago were saying, isn't that more of a community matter? It's not necessarily an economic driver. It is definitely a top priority for economic development, as we have learned from our major employers as well. Just this Monday morning with EB's legislative breakfast, Congressman Courtney talking about housing, and how the National Defense Authorization Act is now going to allow for more than the development of hard assets. It will be focused on building community infrastructure, housing, transportation. So definitely in support of referencing housing and the need to deal with our existing housing and standards. I think that is in line with what we've discussed for years.
Anyone else have any comment about? Do we need a motion for me to write a letter?
Yes.
Okay.
So to write a letter that we are interested in furthering the dialogue.
We're supportive of the efforts to, address standards and come up with some approaches that, have some impact.
So moved.
Okay. Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Susan.
Okay. So, next, chair report. Okay. I don't have very much other than, I already had shared that Suzanne's agreed to stand up and help with the outreach. I think we made some good progress last meeting, setting up a subcommittee for that. And I just really encourage everybody to be supportive of that and get involved. It's really critical for us to have a finger on the pulse and to engage the community, the business community, so we can hear their voice and share that with the town council and the town manager and create an environment where, we all thrive. So that's one of the issues one of the things I want to share there. There also we were discussing some of the DCI funds with the Navy and how we may qualify for using some of those funds, and Paige and I and some of the got together and sort of looked at some of the proposals that we can put forth. So we're working on that further. Yeah, and so staff reports.
Okay. You all have a copy of the staff report. I'm going to run through some of the highlights. ARPA, top of the list. It has been for a while. We're marching forward and trying to get the money out to those who need it. We were before the RTM Finance Committee on February 22nd with roughly $2.5 million in projects. Those were the same projects that the town council had favored. So the next step, and hopefully the final step, will be on March 8th. We're before the RTM, so they can sanction this long list of projects. And then we will enter into agreements with all of the projects and allowing them to advance their expenditures. Next item, Clodchester reuse public meeting. The general sentiment about the building is that people really want it to be an athletic type facility. This has been going on for a while, although we have received, probably many of us have received inquiries, hey, that would be nice building for housing or business incubator or even daycare. The sentiment from the community is that it would be more of a Parks and Rec type facility. So in refining the concepts, that February 7th meeting was held with Kent and Frost. Right now they're looking at athletic fields, aquatic center, outdoor splash pad. And the public's invited to weigh in on that through a variety of concepts by going to the Greater Groton website. Downtown Mystic Parking, pretty well-attended meeting on February 21st. It was held at Union Baptist Church. We had over 80 people come with a variety of breakout sessions where there was an initial presentation by the consultant. We've had several of these, but this was another one. And people could provide comments in these smaller groups. And after the meeting, all of those comments were documented, aggregated together. So we have those on file. So next step, basically, the town council needs to find out whether or not they're going to begin any implementation on the Groton side. The Stonington side appears to have halted at the moment, but we'll find out what steps are in play for that. I already mentioned the electric boat legislative breakfast. It's an annual event that was held on Monday. It's always really exciting to learn not only about what's happened, but what's coming. And it's huge. It is just massive. And the goals that they have for 2022 will be exceeded in 2023 in terms of hiring, number of contracts, etc. They basically said that the hiring trend will continue for over 10 years. So locals, I've heard this, people say, well, you know, we've heard this before and there'll be a downturn and we'll be suffering. They're going to ramp up for 10 years. And then at that point, there'll be significant attrition and they'll be dealing with backfilling those who retire. And then in terms of contracts, they're good for 20 years. Another interesting point, as we talk about housing, 95% of their workers come within a 50-mile radius. So they're driving in, which aligns with that 82% commuter trend that we talk about. So they're coming from quite a distance to come here. Marry that with the housing demand, and it's a strong market for us here. I already talked about Congressman Courtney. He stressed that the new federal appropriations can go to more than simply hard, tangible military assets. It's to help community a little bit and try to bridge those needs, whether it be parking or roadways or housing, job training, etc. Chair mentioned the infrastructure pilot program. We participated in a webinar on February 16th. Thanks, Stephen, for keeping us informed about all this. The Navy's been great and being a partner and allowing us to tee this up. We are focused potentially on a project dealing with a transit hub just outside of the base. It would require design, it would require match money. We're not targeting this summer for a submittal, but likely the following year. Dealing with public property redevelopment, no activity, Mystic Ed. I did state no activity with Groton Heights, I think most have read the article in the paper today. That our partner, Thayer Mahan, is not going to pursue that project at this time. This letter that I have provided to you is public knowledge, and we greatly appreciate the contribution that Thayer Mahan makes to Groton, and they've been a fast grower up to about 100 employees. But at the same time, they're not a development company, and the property does have environmental issues, and there's only a certain bandwidth that the company can address as they're dealing with all of their contracts. Plus, they have made somewhat of a commitment at their existing facility at 120 Leonard Drive. So that's all explained in that letter, which the council's received, that was provided to the town manager. It is public information, so I'm sharing it with you. I think it actually makes sense. And the town will have to make a decision as to what its next steps are. That's a decision that will be made by the town manager and the town council. Gold Star Highway property, Tuesday night before the cow, they supported extending the option agreement for that property to 18 months. So basically that's the outlier. We're hoping that the property will close prior to that. There are developers that are in the picture interested in building on that property, but there is the option basically is with the two abutting private property owners to the two town parcels. So the theory is we aggregate the 4 lots and a builder comes in to construct multifamily housing. So they need a little bit more time in order to make this deal happen. No activity on Triton Square, the former Sealy School. And the last property I'll touch on, Colonel Ledyard School, small property on West Street. Bellsite LLC also received on Tuesday night a 6-month option extension. That will be finally ratified on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday evening, before the town council. But he is going before Groton City's Conservation Commission and Planning and Zoning shortly. And we clearly support this project. That includes about 65 residential units. I believe they're about then a half a mile of EV. So not only do we need housing, but we need parking. So many of the people that live at this property will be walking to work. I think those are pretty much the highlights of my report.
Page,
Yes.
just a quick question, just backing up a little, and I don't want to interrupt you when you're going through your the comments. On the Clodchester School, what does, in terms of the department, what are your feelings in general, the department's feelings about how that property would best be utilized?
We're probably in a minority opinion, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, we've done the market analyses where we see the need for daycare, housing, business incubator. We also received numerous calls for buildings, ready to go buildings. There have been businesses that will call and say, I need a building like yesterday, 30,000, 40,000 square feet, because we're a growing business. I don't have time to go through a planning, zoning, development process. So I am concerned about the lack of building inventory. And when we remove a building from that inventory, it is concerning. At the same time, I respect the wishes and desires of the community at large. Ultimately, they're the ones that have to fund this, and there is a need for recreation space as well. So I can understand both sides of it, but from an economic standpoint, I think that there are needs that we desperately need to satisfy across the community.
I appreciate your input on that. Thanks.
Have they done a feasibility study for making that, take down the building, making fields, water pads, aquatics? Have they done a budgetary feasibility study of what, because in theory, I know I'd be like, oh, that sounds wonderful. And then when you figure out that it's gonna come to this tune, you know, people vote emotionally until it comes to their pocketbooks.
Well, the meeting that they recently had was to try and refine the concepts. And that's where they're at. The next steps will be to refine the budget. It won't be cheap.
No.
And whereas we can go after economic money, like we secured 8.4 million in economic funding for Quonic. We're not gonna find a 10 million, $20 million grant that's gonna pay for athletic fields or splash pad, unless there's some philanthropy that wants to contribute. It likely is going to be a municipal bond. I think that's the next step, to refine those numbers, find out how much it costs and what the taxpayers are willing to entertain.
Actually, Paige, if I could, so they estimated these costs for the purpose of trying to narrow and properly frame, the investment that's related with different scenarios. The survey that's on greatergroton.com right now actually does ask participants what their level of commitment would be for an overall dollar amount, and how would they prefer to pay for it, whether it's a bonding or a kind of a change in in rates, or a one-time payment, or spread out. So actually encourage everybody to go to and fill that survey out. So I think that there's some level of detail and some level of input that's being sought now.
Thank you, sir. All set with that?
All set, thanks.
Next, liaison reports.
Thank you. Steve from Subbase. So the first thing I had on my list was memorandum of understanding that was signed between the Coast Guard and Subbase. It has to do with their unmanned surface vessels, like UAVs, but they're actually boats, like drones, but the boats that they have at their sort of experimental station there, that they're working on these new boats. And I tried to find a picture to put one in here. I couldn't find one locally, but I did see some online that were being tested in Hawaii. It's pretty cool. They look like Zodiacs, big antennas and cameras and stuff on them. Pretty neat looking thing. But anyway, so they can be they can use the base to keep them, to warn them if need be, and to work together on these projects. So that's exciting. And for the research center. The other interesting thing that happened, and I didn't know about this until afterwards, so I probably would have tried to stick my nose in somehow, but Chef Irvine visited Subbase. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the many shows that he's on. I've watched the Restaurant Impossible a few times. He's quite a character. He came and he went to the galley, of course. They went to the firehouse. They have a little galley in there for their own food. And then he went on one of the boats. And, a lot of hens and kings, and met with all the sailors and raised with a big camera. Kind of fun. Big event we had here a couple weeks ago, a couple week long exercise we have every year, Solid Curtain Citadel Shield, where our emergency services are tested, and they do quite a few different drills. One of them was a mass casualty active shooter type event that drill obviously happened, luckily. But it happened, it did in the Healy Theater, and you can see some of the pictures of some of the activity, and we had a lot of the local ambulances involved, including Groton, so we thank them for that. It was very successful training, so great. And the last thing I put on here was just a little history tidbit that I had heard, and I don't know if you have heard, maybe some of you had a little story about the Ocean Era in the campaign. I don't know if you heard that through other channels, but Yogi Berra, of course, is a famous Yankee, and he moved in the Navy during World War II, and afterwards he actually got assigned to the sub base. As you read the thing, he didn't want to come to the sub base because he didn't want to be on a sub, but they came up just to be on the base. And make a long story short, we had a little baseball team on the base. This is back quite a few years, and he got on that team. And at that point, they used to have a bunch of fuel tanks, basically where our fields are now, and they had buried them. That was like open land at that point. And they developed several baseball fields in that area. Yogi Berra actually helped lay those out. So he actually laid out some of the fields that are even there today, the location and the way they were. And he played for the sub base. I used to do quite well. So interesting story. I came to Yogi Berra to sub base. And the last thing I did put with a little diagram that I saw on our Facebook page about all the different sailors, all the presidents that were sailors. And it was kind of interesting. There's Bush, Carter, Ford, Nixon, Johnson, Kennedy. How many of them have been in the Navy over the years? So. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to mention too. On May 11th, we're going to have the Groton Resiliency and Sustainable Task Force come to the base and tour the base to look at the various new resilience and sustainability improvements that we could then a lot of them in conjunction with Groton Utilities, with our new fuel cell and the new generation that's on base, and the smart grid, microgrid that's coming online here eventually too, when it gets completed. So we look forward to having them over and show them all the neat things that are happening in base. Any questions or anything?
Thank you.
Steve.
Sure.
Evening, Aaron with Groton Utilities. I submitted my report and it's in your packet. It's highlight, I think, two things. One, which actually isn't in the report, but might be noteworthy. So we're wrapping up a lot of our calendar year reporting, which is actually due in April. So I think I'll have some more information and more data to you in May. But one of the things that I came across today that I found somewhat interesting, might be noteworthy. So just for customer solar installations, we have 813 kind of rooftop installations. Most of that's in Navy housing, so we have 800 installations altogether currently. That's 4.4 megawatts worth of power. And from a carbon saving standpoint, that's like the equivalent of saving 19,000 metric tons of CO2 since 2019. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is a collaboration actually with NPU, or Norwich Public Utilities, was actually publicized in the paper for our collaboration on the Pontefract crossing, which is a really big project, and it's good. It adds resiliency, water resiliency to the entire region, which is something that Groton Utilities has really been working on quite aggressively with our interconnections, whether it's to Aquarian or Montville or Ledger, or in this case, NP. So excited for those collaborations. And the rest is in my report. Any questions?
I just have to say, I talked to a lot of people at electric rates, and hands down, everyone is thrilled that's got Groton Utilities compared to the people that are just like across the bridge, or there's a huge difference on monthly bills. So I always commend you guys, and whenever you make your report to us, you can pass it along.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
One question, the energy conservation rebate, is there a cap to that? Do you allocate a certain amount of funding, and then when you hit that ceiling, it's done, or is it endless?
For the, it's not endless, but for the program overall, or like a per customer cap,
Overall,
there is no list.
okay.
In theory, we could run out of money, but at this time, it's very low.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other business? Okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second. All those in favor?
Second,
Aye.
Opposed?
thank you, Jim.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.